Very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
Well, it's a cool and calm morning this day. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. It's about 4 weeks to Christmas, if I'm not mistaken. No, about 5 weeks to Christmas. And it's a good time to think about Christmas with so many other concerns to worry about. Well, welcome to the program. We'll talk a bit more about that subsequently. I am Bukola Koka. Hi, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Bukola.
I hope you're better today.
I'm trying. I thought I was, but the relics or the impacts of that loss. So what I'm doing now is try to see which African country I'm going to stand behind. So perhaps I'm going to stand behind all the 9 African countries. We hope maybe 10.
You love football that much, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I wanted to be...
Well, for some of us, it makes no more meaning since Nigeria is not part of the World Cup. This is not
about club football. It's about national team. So it's about national pride. This is the only thing that when it's happening, we don't care which political party you belong to, which religion you belong to, what part of the country you come from. We care less. We don't even care whether the entire players are from a particular ethnic nationality. Just win, win, win.
That's precisely my point.
Yeah,
so national pride is no longer at stake because Nigeria is not there.
I agree, but it's just painful that the biggest or one of the biggest footballing nations in the world with 2 of the hardest strikers on the continent will not be featuring at the World Cup, and they've never also been to the World Cup. But besides all of that, we just wait and see and support every African country. I'm going to be behind them till they get to maybe somewhere significant. Let's see whether we can break the jinx. We've never gone beyond the quarterfinals. Let's see how far we can go. But away from what will be happening in the Americas in 2026, we're looking out to what exactly is playing out in our country, and we're going to explore a lot of conversations today, and some are very deep, some are very touching, from insecurity to issues around the judiciary and all of that. But let's also say, Bukola, we're also watching what is playing out, what will play out today, sometime maybe around 10 a.m. or so, at the PDP National Secretariat, known as the Wadata House. Because the newly elected NWC, led by Turaki, former Interior Minister, they've gone to the police, say, we want to have our first meeting today. And some people are brewing crisis, so we want to tell the police, please, protect us. Well, they call them the wicked-backed leadership of the NWC, the factional one. Some people say it's not faction and all of that, led by Abdurrahman. Are also going to be meeting today at that particular venue. So who is going to gain access into the Wadata Plaza today? All eyes, political watchers will be looking at as to what happened and what is happening with the lead opposition, People's Democratic Party. So we'll bring you up to speed as to what is going to play out or what will likely play out at that particular place. So it's an interesting time as far as the politics is concerned. Bukola, what are you tracking?
Jeffrey, I deliberately started off from, the excitement about Christmas, deliberately, because sometimes you just need to queue up behind emotional safety when there's so much chaos happening around. Speaking of chaos, we're back to the era of Chibok, of Dapchi, of Kankara, of Jangebe, and it's so unsettling. 25 girls have been kidnapped from the, I believe, government girls' secondary school in Kebbi State. And they were not just kidnapped, there was also chaos in the wake because the school principal was killed. He was shot and killed by the bandits. And another person, the vice principal, was shot and killed by the bandits, and another person was injured in the fray as well. We've heard the governor visit the school and address the press. We saw a visibly shaken Governor Idris there yesterday. The assurances he provided are not so assuring. They're not so comforting at this point in time. I wonder, what would be going on through the minds of parents of those 25 girls in Kebbi State. And, prior to this time, Governor Idris had been addressing security concerns and urging community leaders, to firm up security and be vigilant in their areas. Apparently, that has not, held sway in any form, because we're back here, in Kebbi, where 25 girls have been abducted. And this is smack in the middle of conversations about Nigeria being designated as a country of particular concern, about allegations of, people of a particular religion being targeted in killings amid insecurity in the country. These are really unsettling times for Nigeria. Just weeks after the threat by the U.S. president of military invasion in the country, we saw a renewal of resolve by security agents to rein in on killings and the activities of bandits and insurgents, but that has not been sustained. And so we'll ask questions yet again, as we have done time and again, in recent times, about why response time to attacks and emergencies, particularly in the case of fight against insecurity and banditry and killings, why response time is so minimal. In fact, it's not there. When people can be killed, at midnight, woken up from their sleep by bandits and, rapists who ravage their communities, kill them, dispossess them of their possession. And what we do is just go back and count bodies and bury them. It is really, really unsettling, and we must continue to ask the administration of these questions. What are the security, architecture around communities that are susceptible? Why are there still communities in many parts of the North Central which are, have been taken over by bandits, where those who actually own those lands, have been dispossessed and are in internally displaced persons camps? We continue to ask questions. Why there is no security of life and property? What is the value of human life in Nigeria? And why the continued denial of the state and the impact of insecurity in the country? When assurances are provided that the country is doing something about it, we will defeat terrorism and banditry. That was the last that we heard from the president. But there is actually no effort, real effort on ground to tackle this, because that's the conclusion. When we continue to see situations like this, then we ask questions of the assurances provided by government that indeed we're doing something about it. If something is being done, then we won't be having stories like this. Jeffrey, I ask again, what happened to the Safe School Initiative? During the time of former President Goodluck Jonathan, when Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown, started off that initiative with a commitment of millions of pounds. What happened to it, Jeffrey? It's so unsettling. And we identify with parents of those 25 girls this day, just as we remember Leah Sharibo, the remaining Chibok girls, and every other person that is in captivity at this point in time that has no hope of returning and being reunited with their families. Jeffrey?
It's a very emotional, painful situation we found ourselves. First, I would say, we'll commend the military for the efforts they put in place so far. Some are even paying with their lives as we speak. Mm-hmm. It is not just civilians that are dying. Our military is being targeted so that we don't dampen the effort and the energy and the morale of the ones who are doing their work. So we must thank them. And I always like to contextualize. Government is doing something, but government is apparently not doing enough. As far as this killing, I deliberately, because I avoided it because it's going to be an expanded conversation on the program. But while I was processing this, I was like, no, not again. Are we back in these trenches? Something hit me and said, did we really leave the trenches in the first place? 25 girls are nowhere to be found. They're in the hands of these criminals, these cowards who hide behind whatever to perpetrate their evil. That's why I'm also very careful, because when people come here and say and deny that there's no genocide, there's no this, there's no that, I will not be on television and be debating over people's reality. If you've never been to a deadly riot that has killed scores of people, if you've never experienced what those people experience, and I have experienced communal clash, where I see people go out and not come back. I've been there where I could not sleep as a teenager, where things would just happen and everybody start running helter-skelter. You see uncles and big brothers, relatives or community people go out to defend community, and then you see their dead bodies being brought back. I've seen things in this life, in my short life, my small life. So when people are coming to lay claim of their own reality, I'm not one of those who will be quick to use grammar because I now live in Lagos. Life is a bit more comfortable because I've lived in rural areas. I know what it means to be in the face of communal clash. I know what it means to not be sure waking up because two communities just decided they are not going to see themselves the next day. So they are dying on this side, our people are dying as well. And I know what it means to be in the early hours of the morning as a teenager. You can hear bullets flying. So you can come here and do all the analytics. I will never be sitting here and deny people's reality. You can choose to reclassify it how you want, but do not desecrate their memory of the people who are saying we are being targeted. What we need to do as a country now is to say whether their definition is right or wrong, stop this killing. And now while we're trying to debate over Trump and threat and classification, 25 girls are no longer with us. We hope they're alive. That is where we are. So I think stop talking. Our military, everybody, government should just stop talking, just get to work. Get these girls out, rescue them. And I know you can't solve all the problems. So whatever we need to do as a people to keep our people safe is what is required. But please, I think it's a desecration on the minds of people. With the greatest respect to the tenets of democracy, because everybody has a right to opinion, but please, when people say they are being targeted, when they believe there's genocide, don't come and say there is none. That is their reality. So you can now redefine that reality by making effort to stop the killing. That is the best way. Because a lack of brutal honesty is why we're still here, because we want to be sophisticated, politically correct, we don't want to hurt anyone. Now, let's hurt ourselves with truth and tell ourselves, your brother wants to kill me because of this. Your sister wants to kill me because of this. So how did we get here? We're all Nigerians, we're together. We can't be killing ourselves. So let's look for a way forward. That should be the conversation, not denying that certain people don't want to kill certain people. That would be a lie. It may not be the religion. It may be the extremists of that religion. So anyway, so that's why we're saying security is going to be the big conversation today on the program. That's where we'll start off from. 25 girls abducted at a secondary school in Kebbi State. The governor has visited. He had actually sent his deputy, but we must also highlight the vice principal of that school was also killed as well. And from there, we move to politics.
Well, yes, indeed. We'll move to the judiciary. Yes, President Bola Tinubu charged the judiciary to uphold the integrity of the institution, warning that judgments for sale may be, the death of the democracy. And so we'll reflect on the intersection between political litigations and the judiciary this morning on the program, as we have a senior advocate of Nigeria join us.
And that will not be all. The inflation numbers are crashing. 16% is the latest number coming from the National Bureau of Statistics after the CPI, that's the Consumer Price Index, was rebased from the previous year to the new base year. So we're seeing progressive decline in inflation numbers. What is responsible? How is it affecting you? Are you feeling it? So that is the conversation we'll also be having today. The state of the economy through the eyes of employers. We'll be having that conversation today on the program. And then we will be moving now to what the dailies are saying in just a moment. Adeni Ifetayo, who is a public affairs analyst, joins us virtually on the program to bring us up to speed as to his thoughts on what the papers are saying in just a moment. Stay with us. That's it. Mr. Fetayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here once again.
Fantastic. Let's get started with the Vanguard newspaper, Mr. Fetayo, and for good reason, because anything that has to do with lives of people should be the priority in any public discourse and conversation. The Vanguard is leading with this abduction, how bandits kidnapped 25 schoolgirls, killed vice principal in deadly attack, police confirm Kebbi school invasion, abduction barbaric, condemnable, Kebbi government, Tinubu orders rescue of 25 abducted schoolgirls, Atiku condemns attack, advises FG to strengthen security architecture, gunmen abduct ex-Subeb's father, Nasarawa communities thrown into panic. You know, Mr. Fetayo, there was a time the numbers kind of came down in terms of attacks and incidents and even killings. But with what we see, is like there's a resurgence of attacks and all of this criminality that we've seen across board. What do you make of what is going on right now? Another set of schoolgirls. We're not done with Chibok. We're not done with Dapchi. Leah Charibu is somewhere. We do not know or may not. I don't know. And now we've added yet these innocent girls, and always girls. Why?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me take this opportunity to sympathize with the Kebbi state government, the family of those children, and even the vice principal that lost his life along the way. And having said that, most of the time, our government, they are just reactional. And that's the only plan they have. Oh, once an incident happens, we will see what we do to rescue them, just like you rightly pointed out. The Chipok girl, the party, all of those ones, they are still there. So, but what I would have advised that they should have put some measures in place. You know, these things are the challenges that you have. There's a word they call a kind of feedback. Oh, it happened in this school, it happened in that school. What are we doing what are we supposed to do that we are not doing, or what are we doing that we are not supposed to, or that we need to improve on, so that as to prevent such occurrence to happen. I've never heard the governor, I stand to be corrected, in the north to say that we have put surveillance in the whole of the state, or we needed about 30,000 cameras, surveillance camera in so many strategic places. We've installed 10,000. We are working upon it, because when it comes to the issue of security, kidnapping, there are three major issues that are involved: the subject, the environment, and the intention. Once a criminal that has intention to kidnap or to do some kind of damages, when you look at the environment that is so porous, there's no security in place, there's nothing stopping our government, if you are to, create more job when it comes to security, police or civil service, defense corps, so that they can put them at least. Let's have three in each of the school within the state. Those are the things that they can do to serve as a preventive measure. But most of the time, our government, they are always reactionary to something that happens. It's just a pity that this thing is happening again, and I think they should beef up more security around our schools, both public and even private school, as long as the issue of security is concerned. So that, because that's the duty, or number one duty of any government, to protect life and property.
It's a really, really sad story. I'm trying to, make sense of it, make sense of the helplessness of the situation. Because when government charges community leaders, to be alert, what about the end of responsibility that comes from government? If, the community is able to provide intelligence, what then, does government do about it? And we can't stop talking about this. We should continue to mention it over and over again and demand accountability from the government. Because, when it's time for elections, you hear the deployment of 45,000 men. At that time, there really is no argument about whether or not the subnationals, are holding firmly the security levers in their states. But then when it comes to critical issues about, being responsible for the security of lives and property, then there is a gap that is inexplicable despite the application of all the resources, to tackling it. Mr. Ifetayo, pardon me this morning, but it's really, really heartbreaking.
Of course,
as I think about parents.
Yes, very heartbreaking. I understand.
Yes, indeed. Let's go to The Guardian, although The Guardian also covers it, but The Guardian this time around is focusing on the economy. Take a look at the headlines. It's on the front page of your screen. Declining food prices, firmer naira, pull inflation to, I believe The Guardian meant to capture it as 16% as reported. 16% national target. And there is a graphic illustration of the decline that we're witnessing from what it was about this time last year to where we are now. Mr. Ifetayo, how realistic, are the figures as against the experience of Nigerians?
Yes, at least in some quarters, it's coming down bit by bit, and whatever it is they are doing to make sure the number is dragging down, and they should continue. And of course, food is the most of the essentials in life that people, whether you are rich, average, or poor, or whatever state that you have, people must eat every day. So whatever it is they are doing to make sure naira is firmer and to make sure that the prices of the goods are coming down, whether fertilizer at the subsidized rate to our farmers, or to protect more of their farm or farm produce, or to buy it over from those people so that it doesn't degenerate or as a result of being transported from point A to point B. And so whatever it is they are doing, they should keep it up. And just like me, I'm a believer of when you are doing well, let's talk about it. And if you are not doing well, let's also talk about it. For this one, I'll give them kudos for whatever it is they are doing. They should keep it up and make sure that the inflation at least reduce to one figure digit at least. That still makes sense. And comparing to last year and this year, there's a drastic change in it. And let them just keep it up and see that it reflects on all the people, regardless of where you are, north, south, east, or west, at the prices of food. And of course, lastly, they should look at the middlemen, because sometimes they contributed because you have the stock of goods at home or in your store or in your warehouse, and the thing dragged down, they will still maintain that same prices. It's just that we don't have maybe people who are charged with pricing or commodity in Nigeria. I think that's another area the government needs to look at.
Yeah, Mr. Feta. So certain things they're expected. Is the Yuletide is coming, harvest season, and all of that. Some importation done to maybe crash the price and all of that. But we must also, without taking anything away from the effort of government and bringing the numbers down, I think it was when they rebased it, it came to about 25 or 24. So 16 is about 9% down if my data is correct. I don't like comparing it with next year because the base year and the parameters and the coin, what they call coin cup and the weightage are different. So it is by next year, 2027, we'll really do an assessment. But for the purpose of comparison, you can do that last year and this year. Last year was a different base year altogether as against this year when it was rebased. So as much as I will not take anything away from the government, I don't like people arguing that, oh, we met it at 33 and now it's 16. That's a lie. That's not true. Because the government has said they'll bring it down to 15. That was when it wasn't rebased. But we're happy the rates of change of prices of goods and services by this data is coming down. As much as I don't agree, I will keep saying it whenever numbers come out, I don't agree with the weighted distribution of the COI cup. But that's what we have to deal with. We cannot take efforts of government away. So congratulations to the government. As you said, whatever it is being done to make sure these numbers come down. And the lived-in experience, not just data. I did a write-up recently when I was talking about Africa moving beyond growth metrics to development, where lived-in experience is a true measure of developing countries, so that when data come out and we're happy with the data, people are asking, please, we're the ones living under this data. But it takes time, we must admit that as well. Let's go to the Daily Independent newspaper. Outrage trails kidnap of 25 Kirby girls, killing of VP, that's vice principal. So I think we've talked about that. So let's get to the subhead. Maybe you want to comment on that even further in case there's anything you missed. But I want to go down to the other part.
Okay, what I also have expected, they should have some of these substations, cut across the state, that in case of emergency, I only know maybe Lagos State and Abuja stand to be corrected. In case of any emergency, a number that you could die, maybe 3-digit number, just like you have 911, in US that you could call that emergency could come. Because sometimes what if you don't have a number of a commissioner of police, or you don't have the number of DPO? So what will happen when there's an emergency? I think those are the things that state government need to look at and say there's a response number that you can call in case of any emergency, whether fire situation or kidnapping or robbery, that at least that can also aid the times of rescue, and it will not allow carrying 25 girls, kidnapping them, perpetrate all that. Is not something that was done in 1 minute or 5 minutes. It takes a lot of time, and I think we should mitigate against this so that it will not happen in the future.
Yes, the next one I was going to, Mr. Fetayo, has to do with Tinubu admits, that's just below the pictures you're seeing there. Tinubu admits compromise in judiciary, says it undermines integrity. When I saw this and I heard the president, I was just almost smiling. I said, who is responsible for undermining his politicians, new politicians? We see the finest of our judges in terms of justice according to law. As soon as it gets to political litigation, which is a big conversation we'll be having today, we just see the law turn on his head. And sometimes you're literally questioning the competence of some of these judges because it just defies common sense. What do you make of it?
Yes, just like you said, sometimes when they dispel justice in some cases, civil cases and all the rest, you give them kudos. But when it comes to political matters, sometimes it's like they say, who pays the piper dictates the tune. It makes them to be compromise, their standard. And of course, I can say that again is what Nigeria knows, that when it comes to political to agitate matter, when it comes to political matter or cases in the court, and that's when you hear that the person who came third in an election will come over and become the governor of a state. So how does that happen? So many things that has happened that I just felt that the issue of appointing the judges in some of our courts, whether High Court, Appeal Court, or Supreme Court, should be done by independent bodies, not people, not the governor when it comes to the state government now, or the one that Mr. President needs to veto, because sometimes because they want to retain their seat or posting, because of some some lucrative courts that are lucrative or states that are lucrative when it comes to education of justice, and they want to stand in the record book of whoever that is in power. I think appointing our judges should be done independently, and so that they can administer justice without favor or compromise.
So much to reflect on there, and to also look at a total overhaul of the administration of criminal justice system, particularly when you consider, the congestion of Nigerian prisons and the number of those awaiting trial. Some effort has been made there in the last 1 year or so, but the little effort apparently is not enough considering what the numbers are still saying. But away from, the economy and the justice system to what the New Telegraph is saying, reflecting on the challenges of our very dramatic opposition party, the People's Democratic Party. Look at the New Telegraph. Trouble looms as PDP factions prepare to take control of party's secretariat. Both camps schedule neck meetings for Abuja headquarters today. Now, amid all of the challenges, the disagreements and allegations of conspiracy and one faction working with the ruling party to destroy the party, my concern, particularly after the national convention eventually held, was that which group would now take control of the Wadata Plaza headquarters of the People's Democratic Party. And it appears as if that battle will be decided at 10 a.m. this morning. Mr. Ifetayo, what do you anticipate would happen?
Well, I know there's going to be disturbance of peace and order because it's going to be a show of power. And when that, I just hope the police, they are alert that it does not escalate, because some of these political leaders, they have their followers, the psychopaths who are ready to do anything, just to make sure they are in the record book of their master or paymaster, so to say. I just hope that it did not escalate to something that will disturb the movement of people who are going about their lawful duty today. And, we got to this point as a result of judiciary as well. We're talking about the judiciary interpretation of law, and there's no law that supersedes whatever the constitution of Nigeria. So I think it's going to be a confusing state when it comes to PDP this morning, because one party is laying claim that they are the authentic, another one is laying claim that after their convention a few days ago. I just hope the police they come out in numbers this time around to make sure that they maintain peace and order, so that it doesn't disturb or affect other road user or passers-by or neighbor who are going about their lawful duty this morning. Of course, you expect these kind of things to happen, and rightly so.
Very, very. It's going to be an interesting. What do you call it now? We're going to be looking out for that and see how it plays out. I don't know who the police. In fact, our institutions right now is not the best time to lead those institutions, both INEC and the police. Who are you going to be behind? Because everybody has one judgment of court or the other to put up as their reason why they should be the authentic leadership. Even though the Supreme Court has ruled over and over saying that issues around leadership and membership of political parties should not find their way to court. But we keep seeing lower courts entertaining these cases and causing confusion for all of us. That's why sometimes we need to be calling the judiciary out, because that's why the president had to also say what he said, because they are now becoming part of the problem. And we have a lot of fantastic judges and members of the bar who do their work according to the justice. But some, it's a shame what we see. Some of them are being seen now as cronies of political class. If certain politicians take their cases to their courts, you can be sure that case will be in their favor. We should not be able to predict outcome of court cases. But now, Mr. Feta, it gets to a point, one of the ways, if you don't understand anything about politics in Nigeria, if two people are contesting election and they went to court, on the day of judgment, the person who shows up in court is the winner. How did he know he's the winner? And the person who lost, how did he know he's the loser and did not show up? That's what we do in Nigeria, and it's a shame. Let's go to this Nigeria. I think it leads as well. I'm trying to see. Literally, we've touched base with everything. So, Mr. Adeni Ifetayo, we must thank you so much. I know you have a trip to catch. Wish you well and safe. Thank you so much for coming through. Mr. Adeni Ifetayo is a publisher of the Megastar magazine and a public relations expert and journalist. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We appreciate you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, Sigi.
All right, guys, we'll take a break, Bukola, and when we come back, we'll get to our very first conversation, and that has to do with the state of security. We started off with that. Bukola actually went deep into that. I was avoiding it because I was keeping it for now, but how do you avoid something as sensitive as that? That's why we're mainstreaming it today, to make sure that those girls come back. We'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back. And so national security is our focus on our first segment this morning. And Captain Bishop Johnson, retired, joins us. He is also a former U.S. Army captain. He joins us virtually this morning. Good morning, Captain Johnson. It's good to have you again on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Captain Johnson, it's a very troubling morning today because of the kidnap of another 25 girls. We thought we had exited the period of Dapchi, Chibok, Kankara, but we're talking about the kidnap of our students, our young children yet again. And, you know, this is also amid reports about the ambushing of Nigerian army officials in the north and the kidnap of the capture of a brigadier general. We're waiting for confirmation from the DHQ on that particular story. And this comes amid conversations about the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. The U.S. Subcommittee Congress will be holding hearings on that redesignation by President Trump. But what do you think is happening in the minds of, these bandits and terrorists? And I ask this intentionally because when that story about the redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern came through, the reactions, were concerning, with, warnings to the Nigerian government that this should not be taken serious, lightly. So is this a sort of a front, a daring of the terrorists?
Once again, good morning, and thank you for having me. I don't think that security had improved, or that the designation of Nigeria as a CPC is probably the reason why we saw this abduction. The truth of the matter, I listened to your guest who was in your studio to do the newspaper review this morning, and that is exactly the same position that I take. What is happening in Nigeria is that Nigeria is in a web of commercialized criminal enterprise. All of it is centered around illicit mining of Nigerian natural resources and minerals at the outer fringes of Nigeria's north. There's a web of criminal entities that are all working in cahoots to create a dangerous environment in those states where you have those mineral resources so that they can create an enabling environment for them to come in and illicitly mine Nigerian minerals. And unfortunately, as that your guest also agreed, Nigeria has found itself in a situation where we are only reacting after the crime has taken place. I'm not saying that there's no effort to preempt and prevent crimes, but the effort we are putting into, preempt and prevent crimes is much more minimal. And that's why you see these crimes taking place, and then we continue to react after the crimes have taken place. And so long as we are policing Nigeria in that manner, where we react after an incident had occurred, we will continue to go in circles, because the entities that are engaged in these illicit mining activities will continue to throw everything in the wheels of progress of security in Nigeria, so that they will have a free hand to continue with their illicit operation. And unfortunately, the entities that are involved in this criminal enterprise, I doubt that Nigerian government, when I say Nigerian government, I mean the presidency, had taken time to study who is contributing to this insecurity in Nigeria, because some of them also involve some of the people that we want to depend on to protect Nigerians and defend Nigeria, because they are all benefiting from these illicit criminal activities.
Interesting. It's a mixed bag of many things, depending on what you and who you're speaking to. And sometimes we've noticed, and I would like you to speak to it. I know you are a military man, but I don't know how you can lace it around political happenings. Sometimes we notice that as we navigate towards the election season, especially general election, we see a surge in attacks. What do you make of that?
Well, we are not that very close to our election. Our election is in 2027, and we are in 2025. Except that we are in a country where we are in a perpetual campaign mode for election. Election will just end today, and the next day, we are campaigning for the next election cycle. Otherwise, I don't see why an election that is coming up in 2027, we are not campaigning today. I wouldn't personally attribute this to political season. I would say that the actors who are involved in these illicit mining activities, there are foreign entities that are financing criminal gangs as a diversionary tactic for them to have free hand to be able to mine our minerals without much opposition from our government. And both some criminal elements in those communities are also working with them. You see, insecurity in Nigeria has become a business, and that's why I describe it as a commercialized criminal entities, right? If you're a state governor, the more insecurity you have in your state, the higher your security votes. There are retired military personnel who are engaged in this illicit mining. They own mining blocks. There are community leaders that are benefiting from it. And then you have foreign governments whose citizens are here conniving with Nigerian locals and even governments and people of our neighboring countries to continue to create this havoc so that they will continue to benefit from the mining of illicit minerals in Nigeria. So, look, we have to take this matter serious. Nigeria is in a serious mess. And then you consider the fact that our borders are to a greater extent porous. I commend the efforts that the current Minister of Interior is making to sanitize that sector and that ministry, but he can't do it alone. He needs support from many, many different entities to work with him to secure our borders, so that way we will know who is coming into the country and for what reasons that they are coming. So long as our borders remain as porous as they are, particularly in those northern sectors where you have all these minerals, there will continue to be all these criminal activities. Just look around the world. Anywhere you see illicit mining activities going on, it always comes with a whole lot of insecurity, because these are lucrative businesses that people make fortunes out of the misfortunes of other people, which is very unfortunate.
If I get you correctly, Captain Johnson, you're saying that those who have been charged with the responsibility of protecting us are part of this illegal mining activity, fueling insecurity in Nigeria's north, and the administration is also aware. So if that is the case, assuming without conceding, is that why there is there's apparently no resolve, no evidence in the direction of overhauling our security architecture, when you consider the way and manner in which attacks continue to occur without any significant difference in the approach to tackling them?
Well, I would say that that's why in my previous statement I said that I don't know whether the presidency is aware. So when you say administration, I don't know whether you're referring to the presidency or you're talking about members of this cabinet. But what I'm telling you is that there are very highly privileged individuals in this country who are conniving with some foreign entities and the locals to create the upheaval of insecurity that you see in those fringe states in Nigeria, so that they will be distracted. Because right now, as these schoolgirls are kidnapped, the attention of government is focused on how to rescue those schoolgirls, and these people are abusing, carrying out their illicit activities, in mining our minerals. Just look around all over the world. That's what happens. And I give you a typical example. I'm from the Niger Delta. I saw at the peak of oil bunkering in the Niger Delta because it took place in my village, right? So when I go home, I see illicit, activities in the oil sector. There is no way any one of those actors could have succeeded in bunking activities without the cooperation of security agencies. It's not possible. It's not even imaginable, because even when you succeed in getting the crude and refining it locally, you still have to get it down to the market. And I know that everywhere in my community, or the waterways, there were houseboats manned by joint teams of the Navy, the Army, the Civil Defense. On the roads, there were, checkpoints by the police, the military. So how do you get it to the market? Yet these people were still able to get their product to the market. But so long as they are not able to get their product to the market, you see that there will be no market for their activity, and that activity will naturally die. But because somehow they get the product to the market, the buyers are there, the buyers were also able to get their own product to the market, the activity continued until they started engaging the effort of these local people like Tantita Security Services, and Tantita started recruiting the local people, and even to some extent, those of the people who were involved in those activities, and they stopped. It's been reduced probably by 70 to 80%. What we used to see when we travel home, we're no longer seeing it. And so what I'm telling you is that there is no way these illicit activities will be taking place in our country without the support of these individuals. The security, we have to have some level of support for them to be able to succeed, because they must be able to get these things out of the country. They must be able to get it from the point of mining to the market where they dispose of them. And to that extent.
Hello, can you hear us? Oh dear.
Okay. What I'm telling you, that there is a coordinated and collaborative effort of different actors who are benefiting from the status quo, and those are.
Oh dear, seems the network.
The ones who are cooperating to continue to perpetuate. In a situation, we are reacting. We are reacting to the problems instead of being preemptive and preventive in the manner that we are.
All right. Captain, can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? Oh dear.
We are approaching centered around the illicit activities.
Captain, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, at some point where the network was freezing, so we're not hearing everything you're saying, but maybe we'll move on. And you mentioned something I want to go back to. And staying on these girls, I'm just, I think we're all traumatized as a nation when it comes to these kinds of incidents. So Chibok schoolgirls, some escaped, some were rescued, a lot more still with the captors, whether they are dead or alive, only God knows. Dapchi schoolgirls, about 110 were abducted. I think about 104, 106 or so were rescued. So others couldn't be rescued. Leah Sharibu is one of them. And now 25 girls. So there's the anxiety on my mind as so, will the 25 girls come back? Putting that at the back of your mind, how should government approach this? Because we're already traumatized as a country. We know how this ends. They never come back complete.
Yes, from the experience, you judge every situation in anywhere from past experience. From past experience, it's not something that I wish on any parent. Unfortunately, the time is past, elapsing, within which we are supposed to have recovered these children. You see, the first 72 hours in kidnap situation is very, very important. And it is important because you don't want them to be taken far away from the point where they are kidnapped and then taken to some other places or even dispersed into different societies, thereby making it much more difficult for you to be able to locate and rescue them. That's why the first 72 hours is very, very important. I don't know how much assets was deployed immediately after the kidnap, because that's what would have limited the people's ability to be able to go further away from the point of the incident. But this is typically what is supposed to happen. What is supposed to happen is that immediately the news of that kidnap broke, we're supposed to have deployed as many assets as possible and create a perimeter around that area to prevent those people from escaping from within the local vicinity of the point of incident. Had we done that, we would have been able to say authoritatively that within so and so time, we'll be able to locate those children and rescue them. Because that's one thing that baffles me. How in the world do you kidnap 100 and something students and you are able to safely remove all of them from the point of kidnap? Nobody saw them. How did they move? Did they travel by road? Did they load them in vehicles? Did they walk inside the bush? So when you listen to some of all these things, there are things that just don't add up. They just don't add up. And so how do they move all these people? Through which means? By truck, by road, by air? Did they walk in the forest? And so some of all these questions are critical questions that we need to ask. And if we can provide a genuine and sincere answers to some of these questions, we'll be able to begin to find solution to them. So yes, the answer to your question is time is fast gone for us to have the hope of finding these girls. The first 72 hours, the most critical time for us to be able to limit their movement and be able to rescue them. So I'm hopeful, I'm still giving out hope that those who are supposed to rescue them are still working and that they know what they're doing, and at the end of the day, they should be able to rescue them. But I'm also being cautious based on the antecedent of this country with respect to kidnap of, school children. Hopefully, they will be rescued when the people responsible start asking for bounties, because usually when they kidnap for purposes of generating money to buy more arms and arm themselves even more formidably to be able to challenge authorities. So they will start asking for ransom and all that stuff. And you see negotiations going back and forth. So I'll leave it at that.
And that's another conversation entirely, the approach to tackling this through negotiation with bandits and, Nigeria's de-radicalization program. But there's another bit of it that is just as critical and is still on the front burner. I asked it earlier as we opened the conversation. I was hoping you would speak to it, but it now takes on an even deeper meaning with your position that there are foreign bodies, or foreign elements involved in fueling this insecurity in Nigeria. What does this mean, amid conversations of the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern and the proposal of military intervention in Nigeria? What does this renewed resurgence of attacks, what does it mean against the backdrop of that particular conversation?
As I stated earlier, I don't see the connection between what is happening now and probably that designation, because I don't believe that insecurity has subsided in Nigeria. I feel that we haven't had incident because now to plan and execute this insecurity that you see, it takes some time and it takes resources for them to be able to plan it. And so anytime that nothing is happening doesn't necessarily mean that insecurity has gone down. It means that the people are there in their incubation period, planning on how to successfully execute their activities. Not that insecurity has gone down. Because quite frankly, I don't see permanent measures that we have put in place to checkmate the inflow of people into our country. We are surrounded by a whole bunch of poor and chaotic countries, from the Sahel through Niger and Chad. And then we have a situation where our borders are not as properly secured as they should be. You know, I am one of those who believe that, look, for us to deal with the insecurity in Nigeria, because we have bad neighbors. We have bad neighbors. We have neighbors that see Nigeria like the way people in Latin America see the United States. They see Nigeria as an El Dorado, where whenever they come in, they make money and they go home and they live comfortably at home. The thing has even fueled a situation where even their politicians are sponsoring people to come to Nigeria and cause havoc and make money and return home. Otherwise, how do they get the weapons that they use? Who is, sponsoring them? So, like I said, it's a whole web of criminal enterprise involving Nigerians and foreigners who connive to cause this level of insecurity upheaval in those fringe states in the country, so that they will continue to mine Nigeria's mineral resources without anybody challenging them. But that is what is going on in this country.
Captain Johnson.
For us to stop it, we will take our border security very seriously. Areas that we need to build wall, we build wall and fence. Areas that it's not possible for walls and fence, we use technology to secure those areas. Areas we cannot use technology, we use human beings and mine them. We must secure our borders. When we secure our borders, we will not be able to eliminate the insecurity that is brought upon us by external factors. And those that are local and internal will be able to focus our effort in dealing with the internal insecurity. But we must first and foremost remove the external factor from the insecurity we have in Nigeria, so we can focus on solving the internal insecurity. If we don't do that, we'll continue to go in circle, continue to react after the incident are taking place with no permanent solution in sight.
Captain Johnson, specifically, what does this mean for the ongoing diplomatic efforts and talks between the Nigerian government and the U.S. government over the proposed military intervention?
I have talked a lot about this military intervention. You see, the way some Nigerians are taking it, they're taking it as an infringement upon their sovereignty, right? People are already infringing on our sovereignty. There are nationals, Chinese nationals, Korean nationals, some of whom are here illegally, brought in by Nigerians to help them to continue to illicitly mine our mineral resources. That's why immediately that threat came from the US. Guess the first country that was quick to react and respond to it, it was China. Because the Chinese people are here causing havoc in Nigeria. In the name of helping Nigeria, they are creating insecurity by illegally mining our mineral resources, establishing illegal cyber businesses where they hired Nigerians. And I'm not the one saying it. EFCC has busted a lot of those businesses, illegal businesses, carrying out illegal activities. The same thing is happening in the mining sector. And so, look, the US can be a force of good and a force of evil. There is no question about that. But I believe that the United States is more of a force of good than bad. We should approach the United States with sincerity of purpose, acknowledging that we have problems. And the advice I had given to this administration in every fora that I had found myself is to say, look, it's for them to just only take ownership of this particular administration that began in 2023. Mr. President, even though Buhari was a member of his party, should not take ownership of Buhari's administration. Because as far as I am concerned, Buhari's administration was a disastrous catastrophe in terms of security in this country. So he shouldn't take ownership of that administration. He should also not take ownership of administration of Goodluck Jonathan, because as far as I am concerned, that other one was a catastrophic disaster in terms of security in Nigeria. He should only take ownership of his own administration. Look, yes, I recognize we have security challenges. That's why I ran, because those I had helped into government, whom I believe I had would solve the problem. We are unable to solve that problem. That's why I ran, and that's why I am here. So I own this problem. Yes, we have challenges. Look at the steps that we have taken so far. These are the challenges that we are facing, Mr. President. Understand, I've only been in office for 2 years. How can you help us? So we can have a genuine discussion with the United States on how they can come in and assist us genuinely, okay, genuinely, than being dismissive on the issue of sovereignty. And I've had some university professors talking about international laws. Come on, man. Nigeria cannot lecture America about international law and sovereignty. Sovereignty, the principle of sovereignty, they all came from the West. International law, America has been an architect of driving international law. The evolution of the United Nations, it came from the United States. And so we are not in a position to go and lecture them about all those things. They know about all those things. And those things don't apply when they want to achieve anything. You can see it in what is happening in the Caribbean Sea with Venezuela. There's a talk about how to invade Venezuela until Maduro comes to negotiating table. You can see what happened in Gaza. So the talk of international law and sovereignty is not going to work with the Americans,
Captain,
particularly this administration, because this is an administration that shoots first and then asks questions later. And so this is what our government has to do. Get into genuine negotiation with Americans on how they can help us to solve our insecurity problem, including the insecurity problem that emanates from external factors. Okay.
All right, Captain, if I may come in, to add to your thoughts, and I know that you had mentioned, it's so early to call the political class. It's not. Trust me, elections are just 17 months away. We monitor these things, and we know a few things. So sometimes there are enemies of states that sometimes it's an interplay of geopolitics. It's a mixed bag of many things. It's a mixed bag of geopolitics, religion, ethnicity, and even people who are trying to make the government look bad. It's a mixed bag of many things. That's why my concern mostly is not with those. My concern is how we can protect our people. Because this interplay is not happening everywhere. There are some places it's happening, but it's way more manageable than the others. And that is a list I want us to enter as a country. And I want to talk about ungoverned spaces. If you go to parts of the north, the expansive land, before you see any living creature in terms of their settlement distribution, is really difficult. And these are the areas that these attackers, these terrorists, I don't like calling anybody bandits. Anybody who kills people for all of the reasons that we're familiar with, is a terrorist in my view. I may be wrong. I'm not an expert in security. Maybe you can educate me on that. And I feel that they should book an assignment with God by the Nigerian state as quickly as possible. It's as simple as that, if they are killing our soldiers in combat. So where I'm going to with this is how America also has expansive places. I know they don't have the kind of challenges and neighbors we have, because if you look at their geography, surrounded by Mexico down there, Canada up there, the only people that may be given the issue is just Mexico and the immigration. So their case is not like ours, but they have these expanded spaces. How much of technology can we deploy to help us? Because I keep thinking, why are we not investing in as intense technology, as sophisticated technology as possible, especially at the far ends of the hinterlands, around our borders that are porous?
You see, we have outdated laws in this country that are also hampering our ability to police our country, right? If you have to bring in drones into Nigeria, you have to get clearance from the Office of the National Security Advisor, because we are placing primary benefit, we are placing secondary obstruction over primary benefit, that people may import drones and be able to overthrow the government or secede from Nigeria. Therefore, we are limiting our ability to revolutionize technologically, like as is being done in other countries. So we need to tackle those outdated laws. That's one. Number two, if you look at private security sector, there are over 1 million private security guards in this country that this country is not effectively utilizing, especially in terms of gathering of intelligence information. We ask and encourage our citizens, if you see something, you say something. But most people who are not trained may not be able to decipher what is a security threat from what is not, and may not even have the courage to call in. So that's why people like us should, I've been a proponent of trying how to use the private security sector more effectively to aid us in combating criminal activities in Nigeria. That said, let me go back to what you said about ungoverned space. There is no place in Nigeria that is supposed to be ungoverned. And this is because there is nowhere in Nigeria that is not a local government area. Every place in Nigeria is a local government area, covered by a local government administration that is supposed to be able to govern those areas. So when we talk about ungoverned spaces, how? Why? The reason is because we have killed the local government administrations. The local government structure is almost non-existent. The governors have constituted themselves into vampires that every money that is supposed to go for local government administration, they will just hijack it at the state level. And they're not allowing the local government to function effectively. Back in the days when local government were functioning effectively, in conjunction with our traditional leadership institutions, this country has minimal insecurity until we began to bastardize those two institutions, and that brought us to where we are. Nigerian land space did not increase. If anything, it even diminished. Yet, in that time period, we were able to maintain law and order across the 774 local government areas in Nigeria. So we're not supposed to have a government space, if you ask me, because our land did not increase. What has diminished is the resources at the disposal of our local government administrations to be able to dispense governance to their people. You see, sometimes we blame the security agencies and the military. They cannot kill this. We can't kill ourselves out of this problem.
True.
Governance is important. Governance is a part of security strategy. People who are charged with responsibility of providing governance must provide governance so that we can remove those small criminal elements from the equation and focus our attention on those who are bent on causing havoc in our country. Unfortunately, we have a situation in Nigeria where the local governments are in comatose. Therefore, they render those services to the people, and those people are hungry, and they add to a whole bunch of population at the disposal of these criminal elements to recruit into their enterprise.
Let me come in there.
To carry out insecurity that you see in the country right now.
Yeah, and besides the local governance structure, the president recently launched the National Forest Guards Initiative, a new line of defense to tackle banditry and insurgency. And so we might ask, since you talked about the first 72 hours being critical after a kidnap, why, or if that particular structure will be, critical to respond to that and ensure that, the girls are got. We could also ask about, the ambush to Nigerian armed forces in Dambuwa in Borno, which saw the capture of a certain Brigadier Uba, why that has not also, come through as a timely intervention to rein in on the situation. But we must anchor at this point, and thank you very much for coming on the show and providing your experience to this particular security matter. We've been talking with Captain Bishop Johnson, retired and a former U.S. Army official. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, it will be time to take a critical look at the judiciary amid concerns of political interference. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
modern lifestyle requires a lot of energy, backed up by intense production processes, which impact the environment in more ways than one.
The world has realized that you cannot deal with climate change without looking at loss of biodiversity.
On Eco Africa, nature speaks and the discerning mind becomes champion of sustainable living.
One thing we want to do is to change public behavior around recycling.
Watch Eco Africa on Channel Television and find out what nature is saying.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the last hope of the common man, as it is often referred to, our judiciary, and what we've been seeing playing out, especially when it comes to political litigations and the state of the judiciary. Well, yesterday, there were big talks at the conference of Superior Courts of Record. Justice Kekereekun, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, also made an appeal about independence and all of that. The president also charged them not to be compromised, because that will endanger democracy. But I would like you to take a listen. But before that, let me introduce my guest. Kayode Adelola is a senior advocate of Nigeria, joins us virtually. Leonard Silk, thank you so much for coming on the program, sir.
Morning, thank you.
Okay, my first question will be the president's remark. I would just like it to be played, and then I'll ask my first question based on what the president says. So let's take a listen to the president.
Yeah. We cannot build a just society without a fearless and functional judiciary. In this period, we have resolved to provide the institutional and material support that will enable our courts to perform their duties with dignity, confidence, and efficiency. Justice must never be for sale. The bench must never become a sanctuary for compromise. Corruption in any form or any arm of government weakens the nation, but corruption in judiciary destroys it to the core. When justice is compromised, government loses its integrity, and democracy loses its foundation.
All right, senior advocate, I want to pick a few words that the president said, and I would like you to respond to them, maybe in the sequence they come. He talked about fearless and functional judiciary, justice for sale, sanctuary for compromise, corruption destroying democracy.
Now, thank you very much for that question. Generally speaking, every person who's appointed a judge and who sits on the bench should have integrity, should have honor, should have courage, and of course, fearlessness. Now, those are not attributes that come naturally to a lot of people. In other words, for you to have people who have such attributes, you must seek them out. There are people who are very knowledgeable. There are people who are very skillful in the use of the law. There are people who understand the nuances of, adjudication, but they do not possess the right character. And if they do not possess the right character of fearlessness, of dignity, honor, and integrity, it's futile expecting them to dispense justice. And that also will relate to the administration of the judicial system, having a functional justice system. If you do not have people who have character, you will find it difficult. Now, I'm always very slow to criticize the judiciary as a whole, There are very many sterling gentlemen and ladies who sit on a bench and for whom I have the highest regard. They are courageous, they're knowledgeable, and they are people with integrity. However, you find a few people who have done things that are untoward and they bring blemish to the generality of the members of the judiciary. And then Mr. President also mentioned that justice should not be for sale. Now, the question is, if something is sold, it means that there's a buyer, it means there's a seller, it means there's a market. Now, if there is a seller, who are the sellers of justice? If there is a buyer, who intends to buy? Well, let's not be semantic here. We are criticizing our judges as saying they sell justice. But the question is, who approaches them to buy? Many people in very many sectors of our country are guilty of tempting judges. And I use the word tempting, knowing full well that as human beings, many of us can only resist temptation only to a limit. There are people who keep monies for politicians, who know how to siphon the monies to judges. And I'm talking about bankers themselves. I'm talking about politicians who knock on the doors of judges, asking them to sell justice. I know that there are also citizens who want their candidates to win at all costs, who are willing also to pay for justice. So if we look at these sets of people, we'll be very careful to put the blame only at the doorstep of judges. A lot of people participate in this wholesale corruption of our judges and our systems. Some are able to resist, some are totally unapproachable, but of course, some are willing. And it may also go to how our judges are appointed. Do we actually dig into, do like we would do in other sectors, due diligence to find out if this person is knowledgeable, but yet can we actually trust him to dispense justice? So if we look at these signals and we ask ourselves, was the president saying what we know? Yes, he was actually saying what we know. And is he willing and able to lead from the front and encourage people who are around him as well, or other politicians, because he's the arrowhead of politicians, and encourage other people who are politicians to stop this vice? But when he does that on his own side, how about other members of society? Judges can be punished, and we have seen many judges punished in the past, and especially in this new dispensation under the Lord Honorary Justice Ecology. So these are things that we all know, and all hands must be on deck to cleanse this stable. Thank you.
This particular administration actually approved 300% increase in salaries for judicial workers. And, there were reports subsequently that it had begun to implement that. Besides, we've also seen efforts at both the subnational levels and even in the federal capital, to improve the welfare of judges through the purchase of vehicles, and provision of accommodation. But it appears as if that is inadequate to tackle the problem. What are your recommendations to, ongoing calls for reforms in the National Judicial Council, particularly with regards to the appointment of state chief judges? Because that's also, where some of the problems that we're seeing emanates from.
As I said earlier, look, you should know that some people were well brought up. Some unfortunately missed it. And if someone comes with bad character or has flaws and you appoint him a judge, it's not about making him chief judge or not. Look, if he has insatiable appetite for funds, for money, even if you pay him $1 million every month, it just means that he has higher stakes. There are people who are judges and we see them, we know them. You can tell from a distance that these are people who are living within their means. And I'm saying so because because we all know. So when you appoint judges who invariably, will aspire to become chief judges, and it's their turn to become chief judges. What do? You've accommodated them for so long, and then it's time for him or her to become chief judge, and they say, no, you're not qualified. And then there's the politicking that may also go with that. The truth is, there are people with the greatest respect to our judiciary. There are people who are on the bench who have no business being there. And they are the few, and I say few, they are the few who are stigmatizing the rest of the judiciary as a whole. As often as we find these persons, we should ask them, we should show them the way out. And going forward, the method of appointment of judges to the bench should be transparent. We should be able to, have comments on the character of persons who are nominated for the judiciary. What have they done in the past? What has been their character? Even way back to their schools. Now, when we were applying to become senior advocates of Nigeria, our names were published in the newspapers for people to have comments on our personality and our suitability for the rank of senior advocate. Why can't we do that for judges? Like people say, it's easier to be appointed a judge than to become a senior advocate of Nigeria, because politicians will nominate, chief community leaders will nominate, and once you find your way to the interview and you're able to prove your mettle to a point, you will get in. Of course, we've also heard of some have performed very woefully and still were appointed. So we're saddled with such people who may even find their way to the superior, to the higher bench, the Court of Appeal or higher. And so where does that lead us? The whole process of appointment of judges going forward will be more transparent than it was hitherto.
Yeah, senior advocate, I think I saw one list one time, like I don't know whether it was judges or something, but there's a particular resolution I would like to get from you. So I'll give you a classic example where the embarrassment from political litigations and the state of the judiciary. Classic example is Rivers State. So at the height of their crisis, the two political factions, we noticed that all cases, literally all cases, or maybe 90-something, 95, 99% of all cases emanating from courts in Rivers State favored the clique of the governor. And all cases emanating from Abuja, the FCT court, favored the FCT minister and all of that. So it became very troubling. And these are courts of coordinate jurisdiction. Why did I use that example? Two things you've highlighted, and two things we seem to understand, is that in some cases, as using your own words, temptation, politicians, because we're talking about political litigations and the judiciary, in some cases it's being tempted with money and whatever it is they are tempted with. In some other cases, they are being threatened. We'll talk about incentives, about other things, but let's use these two classic examples and what resolution you think there is. So for the good ones, which I want to believe are the majority on the bench, who are faced with these two kinds of temptations, either in financial inducement in dollar terms or in naira terms, or literal threats to life or their family, how can they work their way out of those kind of situations if they don't want to compromise and also preserve their lives and their families?
Well, these are persons who must be protected. So they should be able to have an avenue for reporting these temptations and be protected when they do so. Let's talk about the two that you have given as examples, which I mentioned, temptation and threats. If someone tells you, for example, oh, there's this election that we have lost, we want you to do something about it. They know the terms they use, and you say no. And says, well, we know what school your children attend, and we know what we can do to them. They may not say it in so many words, but you understand the threats that you're faced with, especially if you get home and you say that to your spouse. So one or two things: am I going to resign from this job, or am I going to just keep going and act as if nothing is happening? Or am I going to speak up and let people know that I have been threatened by some persons? But they must be protected. A judge cannot protect himself or herself. She has to be protected. And that is why when someone puts before you as a judge a lot of money, and I'm talking about a whole lot of money because the stakes are very high in some litigations, very high, especially when we're talking about political litigation, election litigation. Those are situations where people are tempted almost beyond their capacity. What should they do? And as I said, I think there should be an opportunity or an avenue for them to be able to report this thing, which can be investigated, and if possible, the culprits are punished. If we have that done, then they will be protected. But the question then again is, those who probably will be threatening them or offering them these juicy bribes will be people who are in higher places, people who in our society, we have found out that they seem to be untouchable. So even when you report them, nothing happens, that makes your case even worse. Our society as a whole, Jeffrey, our society as a whole needs to be cleansed from litigants to the man on the street, to the one who receives 2,000 naira to vote, to the one who takes his voter's card and sells it, to the one who is a politician who wants to win at all costs, to the judge. Every one of us needs to do some introspection. Otherwise, we shall be treating the consequence rather than the cause.
And so beyond the concern about financial inducement of judges, there are also filial concerns. And in fact, in some cases, matrimonial concerns. And we heard it, at the valedictory, we saw it play out at the valedictory ceremony of the last Senate, when a senator, made an open confession about the intervention provided by his spouse. We've seen state governors appoint their spouses as high court judges. How do we then deal with the tendency to be induced, even not financially, but to dispense justice without favor in this regard? How do we deal with that particular problem?
I have just said to you that we need to cleanse our society. No one in a decent society appoints his wife as a judge. It's an exalted position, a position of grave responsibility, honor, and integrity. Even if your wife happens to be the best person, for the fact that you are the governor at that point in time makes her forfeit that opportunity of getting to the bench. I mean, many of us in the legal profession know of a former Chief Justice of Nigeria whose son was going to apply for silk, and she said point blank, whilst I'm CJN, I'm not going to be able to approve your elevation to the rank of silk. When I'm gone, you can do it. Not many judges will do that. Not many judges will do that. And until when we find a situation where people will say, well, tough luck, I'm in this position, I'm unable to accede to your desire to become a judge at this point in time. When my successor comes in, maybe you'll be able to get that done. It is a need for thorough cleansing of our society. So I'm not very quick to cast aspersions on our judiciary just because they are high up there for us all to see. I just mentioned to you that money is passing through from a politician to a judge. In many cases, we go through the banks. So there are many sectors of our country, of our society, that we need to do something about. And many of us also, when we support a political party or candidate, we don't care how he wins. Even when you know that he has not gathered the votes, you don't care how he wins. So we are all culpable. And the truth is, unless we all determine and desire to cleanse our societies from the bottom, from the very beginning, we're not going to get anywhere. People have been known to have children who want to take JAMB exams and put them in special centers. That is where it starts from. If a child cannot walk into an exam hall and pass or fail on his own steam. When he becomes a judge, what do you expect of him? And I'm not talking about the poor. I'm talking about even the high and mighty. So we all need to agree that we need to do the right thing. It's same thing with, even with the greatest respect to you, gentlemen and lady, the journalists also, we see headlines and we know that these headlines have been paid for. Everybody needs to participate in the cleansing process. So whether we are talking about people being given bribes or being threatened, who are those giving them the bribes? Who are those threatening them? Everybody needs to look inward and determine whether we want this country to continue to go this way. And so the family, being the smallest unit of the society, needs to have a lot more to do. We've had children going to school with them coming back home with stolen books. We have children who are going to school whose parents give money to their teachers to help them cheat during exams, during WASC. And where do we want to stop?
All right. Senior Advocate, well said. Thank you so much. I think I was speaking with one official. I don't want to reference what kind of official. And he said to me, whether you win or you lose election, you need money to defend it in the courts. And that struck a chord in my head. But as you said, we need purging across board. But we must thank you, Kayode Adelola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for coming through with your insights on this issue of political litigations and the state of the judiciary. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk the economy. The DG of NECA joins us. Inflation numbers has been dropping months and months, 16% it is right now, according to the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics. Let's explore that conversation in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. It's still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. Let's talk about Nigeria's economy now. And joining us, we have the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Forum, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde. He joins us virtually. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on the program.
Morning. Thank you for having us once again.
And so the report came through. Nigeria's headline inflation has dropped significantly to 16%. Some would say even below the prediction by economists. In May 2023, we were actually at 22%. But of course, the explanation would be that last year, the calculation was based on a different rebasing. But what are your thoughts on this significant and continuous decline in inflation? This is the 7th count now.
Well, certain things we cannot contest, even if we have reservations from different perspectives and review those figures, looking at it from different lenses. But what we have seen is, to a large extent, it seems the reforms, it seems they are working. It seems we are making some steady progress. I normally use the analogy that sometimes when you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you stop doing is to stop digging, because the more you dig, the deeper you go into the hole. So it seems from the hole that we found ourselves a few years ago, it seems we have stopped digging ourselves deeper into the hole. And it seems we are now on the path towards getting ourselves to ground zero before we start seeing the kind of sustained growth and development that we all aspire to see. So it seems we are making progress. People have contested the figures, whether it's real, whether it's not real. But the reality is, okay, there seems to be some progress that we are making, and this is a positive that we must all celebrate.
So a direct question to you: do you agree with the numbers? If you do, why? If you don't, why?
Now, I will not look at it as a number. The number can be deceptive, but I rather look at it from the whole context of the whole bucket of the cost of living, as it were, because inflation, from simple economics, is the persistent increase in cost of living. And if you look at from the analysis we've seen, the cost of food seems to be coming down gradually. There seems to be stability in forex. Analysts have also said the cost of the reducing cost of food might not be directly as a result of things being cheaper, but we know there's been a lot of importation of food, which is also putting the local producers under pressure. Because if demand is low and supply is higher than demand, simple economics says that, look, the prices will crash. So some have given those analyses, but what we've seen is that, okay, the food prices are progressively coming down. That doesn't excuse the fact or the reality that transportation, cost of energy, housing, and a couple others, and logistics costs is also increasing progressively. So we rather look at it in the bucket and say, yes, we've made progress in some areas. Yes, decreasing inflation, positive in some areas, but we can't lose sight. We can't focus on the figure and lose sight on the real context of the other areas. If prices are coming down, could it be that the household investment is reducing because household income is not progressively increasing? And if household is not buying, and the manufacturers, as of Nigeria, have said there's increase in stock, unsold stock, going to over ₦1 trillion. So we need to put all those analyses together for us to have an holistic view. The figures, good, coming down progressively, but we shouldn't lose sight of those other areas where the costs are not really coming down.
All right. Perhaps there's progress, and this is the contention that we worry about. When I don't think there's any number you put out that will not be contested, but there's some that you put out and it's like, what exactly is going on here in terms of the numbers? But because this is an official number, it becomes quite difficult to debate certain things. But what I'm saying with all of this, I've always maintained my position. As soon as that COI Cup weightage redistribution happened and the movement of the numbers, especially that has to do with food, I knew in my own little understanding of economics that we may have a problem. And then the answers the MBS gave in their presentation was, of course, aligning with global practice, even what they did with the ILO, with the unemployment numbers, that even the government right now, I can't remember the last time the government cited unemployment numbers, because it's not as if it's wrong, but it's a bit detached from reality. If I am the president and you tell me my unemployment is 4.2, 5.3, and when I'm used to the other, what do you call it now, standard of measurement, I will be very happy. It's good for politics. So I'm saying that to say that when the previous base year was used, food inflation, for instance, almost got to 40%. At some point, we're bordering 39 point something, if my data stays correctly. And then the headline inflation was around 34, 33. And then rebasing brought everything down. As we speak now, food inflation is 13%. So what do you make of all this? Every time MBS releases number, it looks like we're more detached, even though these numbers show the consistent decline in prices of goods and services, vis-a-vis what you've mentioned as inventory of manufacturers.
We can't run away from the issue of contentious statistics. With all humility, with due respect to many of us, that are not really comfortable with figures, or that many of us that processes figures differently. Those figures by the MBS might probably not make sense. And at the same time, we can't run away from the global practice. We can't select one area of the global practice and say, look, this area of the global agreement, if we use it, yes, we agree with it, because it doesn't favor us, or it projects a figure that is in some people's head, that it has to be negative. If it's not negative, then it is not Nigeria. I think we should progressively move away from that. The reality is the ILO and other global bodies have come up with a parameter for recalculating the global statistics, both at national level, and that we have aligned with. It's just, it is what it is, that we just have to align with it. Now, coming back to the reality on ground, which is the contention that I will align with, many times those figures, if they don't align with local realities, then it becomes you create the potential, or you increase the potential for the contention, because people are not really seeing it. Things are improving in figures, things are improving in the books, but the average Nigerian is not really feeling it, and that is where the contention is, and that is where we have urged the government to they have to do quite a lot. The macroeconomy cannot be improving progressively, and then the micro level, the people at the micro level, the employee at the shop floor, they're not feeling these issues. We say unemployment is reducing, and progressively businesses are not expanding, and these businesses are the ones that are supposed to create jobs. So we need to find a way to create that balance, and it is the responsibility of those in authority to help us to create that balance and help the average Nigerian to connect with the figures on ground. Because if we don't connect with those figures on ground, if the reality for me still remains my purchasing power is still relatively low, I can't even purchase the basic things in the market, then that figure will remain contentious in my subconscious. And those are the balances that the people in authority will have to work towards creating.
And speaking of people in authority, and flowing from the strength of Jeffrey's concern about the CPI rebasing, which has led us to where we are, some would argue that even the CBN may not necessarily agree with the position of the NBS, the data provided by the NBS. If not, it will be seen in its decision to reduce interest rate. And the last we saw was by 50 basis points, I think, to 27%. What's your position on this particular argument?
Well, the CBN has said that the progressive reduction in interest rate is also as a result of the reducing inflation, which seems to correlate
but is it corresponding?
The position of the MBS. Whether the CBN agrees, it will be suspect if the CBN, or if all agencies, everybody, all of us, the private sector, the media, if everybody continue to align. This NBS comes up with a figure, we align, we say it's perfect, it's okay, the economics say it's okay, then we have lost the independence of querying that submission by the NBS. And it's the responsibility of the NBS to justify those figures that it has thrown out, to educate Nigerians on this is the parameter, this is how we arrive at this. But fundamentally, I think the CBN seems to align, if not absolutely, but marginally, with the position of the MBS, of Bureau of Statistics, and that is why we think there is also a progressive reduction in the interest rate, as we've mentioned earlier.
I'm sure what Bukola was talking about was is it yield curve differential now, responding to the inflation numbers as we see in other clients, because what we usually see for the purpose of general frame of reference, which you've alluded to, I think you said it smartly, whether marginally or strongly, where FOMC looks at two numbers as the NFPs or the inflation number to know which direction, whether to expand or to cut rates, to expand the economy or to hold or literally tighten it, depending on what they are trying to respond to, which is why I brought out the employment numbers and also the CPI, and look at that differential to see how they are responding, whether truly or not. But sometimes it has to take like 6-7 months consistency and sustainably for them to respond. But talk us through the experiences of how the employers and the manufacturers are responding to some of these numbers. And is it also trickling in terms of the level of supply?
I must confess to you that the joy of every business owner is to see the inflation rate going down, is to see the disposable income of the household increasing, because your capacity to sell is directly proportional to the quantum of the disposable income of the household or the individual. So if the individual's income is not progressively increasing or stagnated, then the capacity of the individual to buy is compromised. The ability of the business to sell is also compromised, especially when the cost of input, the cost of transportation, the cost of energy, the cost of logistics is also increasing. Also, when you have to deal with contradictory regulatory issues, when regulators consistently create bottlenecks for your operations, when legislative issues consistently create bottlenecks for your operations. In the last few years, we've been engaging and consistently engaging the National Assembly on this issue of consistently summoning organized businesses for one oversight functions or the other. Even when the appeal court have said the oversight functions based on Section 88 and 89 does not apply to the private sector. The appeal court has an affirmative judgment on that. But we still see a situation where the committees continue to invite one business to Abuja for one oversight function or the other. Those are disruptive activities that affect organized businesses. So when you bring all those regulatory, legislative, transportation, logistical issue to factor them into the input of the business, you realize that marginally the cost of a finished product will increase. And because the price of the finished product has increased, if you're not careful, you will overprice yourself out of the capacity of the individual or the household to buy, which has resulted in the over 1 trillion naira unsold stock that was mentioned by the manufacturers. So it is still, while we appreciate that the figures are looking better, we appreciate the fact that Forex, there's a stability that we've witnessed in Forex, but we also have to deal with those contradictions, because those are the things that are actually bogging down the organized private sector. If we need to create jobs, it's the private sector that will create the jobs. If we need to get to our $1 trillion economy that the president aspired to achieve, the private sector will play a major role in achieving that. And with due respect to everything that has been done, the support that has been given, I think those inherent contradictions still have to be dealt with for the private sector to achieve its full potential. Currently, we are breathing, but I think quite a lot still can be done to support the private sector.
Mr. Yorinde, the challenge that you have mentioned, experienced by organized private sector itself, puts a big question mark on the numbers put forward by the NBS. But we must anchor at this point, and thank you for coming on the program. Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde is the Director General of the Nigeria Employers Consultative Forum, NECA. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having us once again.
All right, we'll take some of your messages on the program now. And Jeffrey, you have one of them.
Yes. Okay, let's get to the very unfortunate. The Curator's Hub, he said, this is heartbreaking. How long will innocent children keep paying for insecurity in this country? And that emoji of a broken heart just captures your thoughts on this one.
And this one is from Mac Don, who says, this is getting serious, but the FG says everything is in control. It's disheartening to see innocent children that are supposed to learn kidnapped and taken to a forest, I believe you meant to say, and their story is likely going to turn out as Chibok girls, but we hope not. We really do hope that all 25 of them are brought back home.
I'm just worried that this is, let this be resolved once and for all. These 25 girls should come back home, and let's not have the Dapchi, Chibok, and all of the situations that we've always been familiar with as far as the issue of insecurity in our country is concerned. We do hope that the government will step up its responsibility to protect lives and property. We commend them for efforts so far, but they are not doing enough. Enough has to be done for people to feel safe. Our girls should not be fidgety. They're already in a world that is skewed against them. The scales are against women, literally, on every side. And so adding this to the crisis they have to deal with as women, I think is not just fair to them. So I feel that at the end of the day, we should do our best to make sure that these ladies are protected. These girls, they're not just small girls, secondary school girls, are protected. My brain cannot walk away since yesterday from when this, I think it happened about 5 a.m. or so yesterday. We hope all of them, I'm emphasizing, let's get all of them back. And let's see what we can do to ensure that these terrorists cannot just wake up and carry this number of people and go across states. How do you transport these people without being traced? That's a question mark. But that's it on the program. We must thank you for your time and, of course, your usual company. Sunrise Daily is up at the top of the hour. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
We'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.